Hi, I'm Alison Warner, founder of Evolve and Grow and author of Build and Grow. Welcome to the Evolve and Grow podcast show, where I share lots of useful tips and advice to tradespeople who are looking to move off the tools and grow a really successful business. So today's show is all about networking and how this can be such a powerful way of growing your trades business, or any business for that matter. In fact, this is how I have grown mine. I joined a local chapter of BNI, the world's largest networking organization, 10 years ago, and I'm extremely privileged to have as a guest on the show today the founder and chief visionary officer of BNI, Dr Ivan Misner. So welcome, Ivan. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So just to give you a bit of background on the organization, it was founded in 1985 and there are 9,500 chapters throughout the world. Last year alone, BNI generated almost 12.3 million referrals, resulting in $16.7 billion worth of business for its members. Dr. Misner's PhD is from the University of Southern California. He is a New York Times best-selling author who's written unbelievably 24 books, including one of his latest books, Who's in Your Room? He's also a columnist for entrepreneur.com and has been a university professor, as well as a member of the Board of Trustees for the University of Laverne. Called the father of modern networking by CNN and one of the top networking experts by Forbes, Dr. Misner is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations throughout the world. He's been featured in the LA Times, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times, as well as numerous TV and radio shows, including CNN, the BBC, and the Today Show on NBC. So once again, welcome. Perhaps, Ivan, we could start by me asking you to share how you discovered this concept of networking, or how you came across it at least, and how you ended up creating BNI.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And thanks for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. I started BNI because I was a management consultant and I was looking for referrals for my consulting business. And I went to a lot of networking organizations and I really didn't find any that resonated with me. I went to some that were totally mercenary. Everyone was trying to sell to me. And I'd leave those meetings feeling like I'd been slimed and I need to go home and get a shower. And I just didn't like those. And then I went to these others that were totally social. It was happy hour and hors d'oeuvres. Nobody was doing business. And that was a waste of time for me. So what I wanted to do was take the business but not have it be mercenary. But a focus on business. And I wanted to take the social aspect and have it relational, but not totally social, and merge the business and the social, and the glue that would hold it together is our principal core value of giver's gain. This idea that if I help you, you'll help me, we'll all do better as a result of it. And honestly, Alison, I just wanted one chapter, one group. I never thought of it as 9,500 at that moment. What I discovered was that a lot of people were desperate for referrals. They wanted to build their business through referrals, and there wasn't an effective system out there. So people kept asking me to open a second chapter and a third chapter and a fourth. And what's really funny is at first I said, no, I'm not going to open another group. That's not what I do. I'm a consultant. And they talked me into it and I did it. And at the end of a year, I had 20 groups without trying.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me that this was a much bigger deal than I had anticipated, and that it was important because we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. And that was the point I created the plan to scale BNI. And here we are, 35 years later, 9,500 groups, more than 70 countries.
And how quickly did it actually grow in the early days?
Well, we opened in those first 2-3 years about 20 chapters a year. By the time we were in our fourth year, we were opening 40 or 50 chapters a year. Now we open hundreds of chapters every year. But it took a long time to really scale the business, to go global. I tell people I'm a 20-year overnight success. It took me 20 years of building a business to really achieve substantial success as a business person.
Yeah, amazing. And, I often say that BNI is more than networking. And I think we talk about this as well. I always say when inviting guests that it's a referral organization. What do you see as being the difference between those two terms?
Well, people join, and we have hard data to show this. People join BNI for the referrals. They stay for the relationships and referrals. And the relationships end up really becoming as important, if not more important, than the referrals. The referrals are always important. But when we ask people, why have you stayed in for 5 years or 10 years, or they always say it's because of the deep relationships that we've created. Now, there are other benefits. There are, you enhance your knowledge, expand your sphere of influence. You have advisors that you can run ideas by. Those relationships are extremely meaningful. And although we're not a mastermind group, there's a lot of masterminding taking place when you get a group of 30, 40 business professionals together. Some of our chapters have over 100 members. So there's a lot of sharing in addition to referrals that takes place.
It's so true because, I always say to people, my clients especially, I might not have the answer, but I can pretty much guarantee you that I will know somebody who will. And if I don't, I'll know somebody who knows somebody who will. And so it's a lot more than just the business.
Any good coach can do that well. And so obviously, if you have those kinds of contacts, you're doing the right things as a coach.
I hope so. And in your view, why is referral marketing so powerful if it's done correctly?
Well, people, as I said, they're hungry for referrals, and because we don't teach this in colleges and universities, we do in BNI. We've even created what we call BNI University, where people can go and go a little bit deeper, get more granular on how they build their business and how they generate referrals. Referrals are the best form of new business. And I see many people now who get the lion's share of their business through referral marketing. I did a survey that was part of a book I did on gender and networking. And one of the questions we asked was, has networking played a role in your success? And we surveyed 12,000 people. Over 91% said that networking has played a role in their success. When have you ever seen 91% of any people read anything? So it's critical. What blows me away is that we don't teach it still in colleges and universities, yet it's so important to the average business person.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people buy people, don't they? At the end of the day, it's all about trust. And so if somebody's introducing you that you trust, then you'll be far more likely to buy from them. I've experienced it many times myself. So as you know, we specialize in helping construction and trade SMEs grow. And I think BNI is something that can be extremely powerful for this sector in particular. But often I hear people say that they hate public speaking. The thought of going to a networking meeting and standing up in front of 50 people just literally terrifies them. What advice would you give to somebody that considers themselves in that situation?
Well, first of all, let me start with the end in mind, and then I'll give you some particulars. One of the things that has just amazed me in BNI is the number of people who come up to me and say, I was petrified at first to stand up and speak. And now I have nailed my weekly presentation. I can stand up and I can talk about my business so incredibly effectively. BNI has taught me speaking skills, and that's not our mission. But, if you get up every week and talk about your business, it improves your skills. So here are some things that I recommend for people that are nervous speaking. First, remember, you are the expert. You're the expert. If you're in a contracting field, whatever it is, if you're a painter, a general contractor, an electrician, most of the people in that room don't know anything about that business or very little about that business. They want to hear from you because they don't know your business. So you're the expert. Here's the second thing. Come in with photos. Have handouts, things that people can look at. It makes it way easier to talk when you're pointing to photos. Here's a before photo. Here's an after photo. So now don't even look at it as a speech. You're just showing photos, talking about what you did. And as you do this longer and longer, you get better and better at it. But here's one other example. I had an accountant in a chapter who was petrified to speak, and she had to do her feature presentation 10 minutes. And she said, I take 20 seconds of my weekly 1 minute. I can't talk for 10 minutes. So I said, do this. Don't speak. Give a quiz. She said, what? Give a quiz. True, false. Ask 10 questions. Ask everyone to raise their hand. I said, do you feel uncomfortable reading a question? She said, no. I said, good. Read the question. Ask how many say true, how many say false, and give them the answer. That's it. She was so good. She did this quiz. It was funny because they had to pull her off stage because she was going over time. She just got engaged in the process, and she just did a quiz rather than a speech. A lot of ways to do it to get the message you want across.
Yeah, because she was making it more interactive. I guess it was taking some pressure off her for having to talk for 10 minutes. But it that nicely leads me into my next question, actually, because, I've personally experienced this, that you do get so much more out of being a member of BNI other than the business, which I wasn't expecting. And I'm sure a lot of other people joining perhaps weren't expecting either. So what sort of things, other than the personal development, public speaking, what else do you think members get out of being part of something such as BNI?
Sometimes when I was visiting chapters, I would say, what are some of the benefits of BNI? And of course, one of the first ones is referrals. I said, great. If I don't hear that pretty close to first, I'm nervous. So that's good. But what else? And it's amazing, all of the different answers that you get, the mentoring that takes place, the professional support, the advice that you get from experts in various fields, the long-term relationships that are created. I give you an example. I had a member of a chapter, and she stood up and she said, let me tell you about BNI. It was during the opening portion where you talk about what BNI is. And the president had her share her story. And she said, I have created friendships that will last a lifetime in BNI because the members here really care about each other. She said, a year ago, some of you don't know this, my husband was in an automobile accident, a very serious accident. And he's okay now, but it was very serious. And I got the phone call while I was at so-and-so's office. Another member, she pointed to him. I was at his office and I got the phone call, and it was across town, and I jumped in my car and I drove, and it took me a while to get there. But by the time I got to the hospital, there were 4 BNI members already there because he had called some of the people who lived near that hospital, and they went and they were there for me, and they helped me through that horrible, horrible day. And one of the women said, hey, it's almost time for your kids to get out of school. Would you just write me a note or something, or call the school and tell them that I'm going to pick up your kids? And they picked up her children. And she said, at the end of the day, when I went home, one of the BNI members, she was watching the kids. There was food on the table. People brought food. She said, I have created friendships that will last a lifetime. And that isn't in the brochure. And I think those are great examples.
Maybe it should be. Because, I think running a business can be a lonely place to be. I joined BNI, 8 months after leaving a corporate background. And I guess it filled that space for me personally, was the team aspect. But I'm sure a lot of people do feel lonely running their own business. So,
it is. It can be, especially if you're a small operation, you don't have very many employees. It's a great place to have camaraderie, but camaraderie with a purpose, to help you in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the listeners to this podcast will actually already be a member of BNI. What would be your top 3 tips to them to ensure that they get the maximum return from their membership?
So I'll give you the top 3 tips, but I think they really would apply to anyone who's involved in any networking. So whether you're in BNI or not, I think these 3 tips apply. First is nail your weekly presentation, or nail your presentation on who you are and what you do. And the key here, if you're in a network where you're getting together every week and you're talking, is to change it up. Don't do the same thing every week, and be laser specific. Specific is terrific when you're teaching people about how to refer you. So talk about one specific service that you have, one particular product that you may have. I mean, you get really granular. Talk about some particular product that you use in construction and why it's updated from the way they used to be. Come in with photographs. Like I said before, nothing beats. You're a contractor, nothing beats before and after photos. It's like interior designers, similar. That before and after photo makes all the difference in the world. When people can see the work you do, that's incredible. So nail your presentation. Number 2, do regular one-to-ones. That is, meet with the people in your network to do a one-to-one, to go deeper and find out who they are, how you can refer them, and how they can refer you. We have hard data that shows that when people do one-to-one a week for a month, they both pass and receive twice as many referrals. 100% increase in referrals, both giving and receiving, by doing one-to-one a week versus one a month, for example. And the third thing is you really have to practice lifelong learning. The day you stop learning how to be better in your business is the day you start to stagnate as a business professional. And so you really have to practice lifelong learning. But we're kind of singing to the choir right now because they're listening to this podcast. And this is what I mean by lifelong learning. Listen to things like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think from a personal perspective, that can keep your mojo, for want of a better word, going, can't it? And I know that we're still in lockdown in the UK, as you will be in the US. During challenging times, it's so important to keep a positive mindset. And I think by investing in yourself continually, that's something that can contribute to that.
Well, let's talk about the lockdown for just a second, because you said positive mindset. So one of the things that I do in talking about this period of time that we've gone through is I like to call it the great pause. Mm-hmm. Because the pause button has been hit on most of our businesses. The pause button has been hit. And how we come out of this pause will really, I think, be highly determined by our attitude, as you said. Our attitude, are we sitting in front of the TV, overdosing on the news and all the bad things going on? Or are we spending this time pouring into ourselves so that when we come out, we have a plan and can just jump into business? While most business people are frozen in fear, if you become focused by fear and you have that focus on pouring into yourself and learning how to do what you're doing and doing it better, you're going to come out of this in a much stronger mental position and prepared position to do business.
Absolutely. So coming back to the construction and trade sectors, what things have you seen those types of businesses do within B&I that have been particularly effective?
So in B&I, there's a concept that we call power teams. And power teams are a part of a contact sphere. A contact sphere is a group of business professionals that have a symbiotic relationship. They're in professions that are compatible, not competitive. One of the obvious ones is the wedding industry, the florist, the caterer, the photographer, the jeweler. I call that the wedding mafia. Once they bring you in, they don't let you out. Well, the trades have the same kind of concept. They can create a power team with a painter and an electrician, a landscape person, maybe even a general contractor. I have seen chapters, and they have power team meetings outside of the meeting, and I've seen amazing things done. I've seen some power teams in a chapter who do bids for projects as a power team. So they one of them says, "Hey, I know this project that's going on in the community. Let's all get together and bid it." And they bid it as a group. And the power team, has gotten many contracts working together as a power team. And one of the things that they like to say is, we know each other. We work with each other. We're not going to be stepping on each other's toes. You know how Oftentimes, one contractor will point to another and say, well, they didn't do this, and I was held up. We know each other. We know each other's rhythms. We work well together. And they've gotten a lot of business that way. It's a great concept.
I'm not surprised, because from a customer's point of view, it's like a one-stop shop, isn't it? Because there's nothing more frustrating, I think, as a customer, if you're bringing somebody in to do a project, but for example, I don't know, like a bathroom, and you need the tiling doing, but they haven't got anybody that they can recommend, and you've got to go and try and find that yourself. It just adds frustration to the whole thing. So it makes perfect sense. Absolutely. So how do you see BNI as an organization evolving over the next 10 years?
Yeah. And one other thing on the last question, one of the things they do is actually produce brochures as a power team and hand those out, which I think is incredibly effective. Okay, so BNI, the next 10 years. So I wrote an article 2 years ago, and this may come as a surprise. You may not know this, but I wrote an article 2 years ago for entrepreneur.com. And the title of it was something to the effect of the future of face-to-face networking is online.
Really?
I did 2 years ago. You can find it up on entrepreneur.com. And I wrote it, I'd like to say I had this crystal ball and I saw that this pandemic would happen. But what I wrote it about was technology, because technology is changing so rapidly. And I really believe that, as we get mixed reality technologies, holographic technology, holo teleporting. I read something yesterday. I saw a thing that Microsoft is holo teleporting, which is 3D imaging. Then as that happens, online face-to-face meetings are going to be more and more common. And it's funny because when I wrote that article, my BNI directors were like, oh, say it isn't so. You're the founder of an in-person group. You can't believe that. And I was basing it on a quote from Linden Labs, where they said within 10 years, mixed reality technologies will be as commonplace as an iPhone. And when that happens, BNI will be disrupted, or we will lead the disruption. So many businesses have been disrupted. Kodak is a great example. Kodak invented the digital camera. They invented it, but they licensed it out because they didn't want to mess with their film business. I don't want BNI to be disrupted. Now, what I didn't see coming was that we did, in fact, all 9,500 groups transition from in-person to online, and we did it in weeks because of the COVID virus. And so I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think that as time goes on, we might see hybrid. We're still going to have the in-person because that'll anchor it. But it's possible. And in the future, you'll have several online meetings and then one in-person meeting, that kind of thing. So that's what I see with the future. And to me, I now know it's absolutely possible to do because we've done it for the last 2-3 months. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 months, BNI members have passed $2 billion, with a B, $2 billion worth of business, according to what they have reported on BNI Connect during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's speeded the whole transition up. I think you're absolutely right. I love technology and looking at the future and where we're going. And I think it will go across into other industries as well. If you look at the trade industries, I think, I've already seen it with my clients. They're having sales conversations, meetings online, and these are people who say, "Oh, I don't do computers," but they've now adapted and they're closing business online and sending electronic terms and conditions. But the next stage will probably be virtual reality or augmented reality, where you have a meeting and you feel like you're in the room with the person.
Yeah, sort of like the Jedi Knights, in Star Wars.
Well,
And
absolutely.
when we get to that point, Alison, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm not a Star Wars fan, I have to say. I think I've seen one.
All right, well, he's a big character in the film.
So what sort of things are next for you?
So, my role with the company now, I no longer run the day-to-day operations of the business. My role with the company is now I'm sort of the Colonel Sanders of BNI. I'm the spokesperson for the organization. I certainly have the white hair, but I'm the spokesperson for the organization. I think an entrepreneur is either working in their flame or working in their wax. And when they're in their flame, they're on fire. They're excited. They love what they do. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in the way they act. when they're in their wax, it's taking all their energy away. You can hear that in their voice. You can see that in the way they act. My flame is to teach people how to network, to talk about networking, to talk about business, to talk about small business, entrepreneurship, scaling a business. That's my flame. And I get to live out the rest of my career, I think, living in my flame. And I love what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. And finally, my last question, what advice would you give to any owner of a construction or trades business who is listening and they're looking to grow, but they haven't considered or tried networking?
Yeah. So the thing I hear from tradespeople is that it really reduces the feast and famine scenario that many trades go through. When there's a recession, it's famine. When there's a strong economy, they're overloaded with work. And it really reduces those down times. And I'll give you an actual story. When I lived in California, we had a contractor there. His name was Mike, and he did all the work on my office or my home, whatever work I wanted done on my home. And he had been a member at that time. He'd been a member for like 15 years. And I remember reaching out to him and saying, "Hey, Mike, I've got this project at my house. I need to move a chimney, and here's this." And he's like, "Okay, I can do it. I can start in 2 months." And I'm like, "Mike, 2 months? I mean, can't you start it in a couple of weeks?" And he said, "You know what? It's your fault. You've helped me create this business where in tough times I'm booked 2 weeks out. In great times I'm booked 2 months out." And he said, "Look, you know the quality of my work. So you could go to someone else, or my quality." And one of the things with him is he was never the cheapest, ever. And he often was not the most expensive, but he was always the best. Always the best. And I trusted him. And so guess who waited 2 months? The founder. I had to wait 2 months. And he was one of the people that said, I no longer am in a business where I have these downturns where I have no business or virtually no business. All I do is extend it out. As business gets better, I extend it out. I've got, projects to start in a couple of months instead of in a week.
Wow. Well, amazing. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, Ivan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you for creating BNI, because I don't know where I would be now without it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that comment. That means a lot to me. And it's great to hear how members have done well over the years. If someone's interested, they can go to bni.com, by the way, to find out a chapter anywhere in the world. And I've got a website, ivanmisner.com. Lots of free content if you're interested in reading stuff and improving your business.
That's great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alison.
I really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. Please do share on social media. And if you'd like to learn more, head over to my website, www.evolveandgrowcoaching.com, where you'll find more details and also my book, Build and Grow, which is available on Amazon. Finally, you can also support the show by writing a review and subscribing on iTunes.